Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. So we went out on Black Friday to see what specials we had, and we're going to drop the PPS off to the M2 off to send it back to get the recall done. And in conversation, the FFL that we were visiting made us an offer we couldn't refuse. Took the PPS, gave us a really good Black Friday deal on this. So we've got a Delta Elite 10mm 1911 by Colt. We've wanted one of these for a while. It's really a really cool gun. And of course, you know, both of us are kind of fond of 10mm. So it wasn't much of a surprise when we could score a 10mm 1911. So let's talk about this thing. But of course, first, let's make sure it's not going to bite us. It is unloaded. Pop the magazine out of here. And it's still unloaded. So the Delta Elite is actually kind of a somewhat historical pistol. They first came out in 1987. And they were made through 1996, and they're one of the guns that's actually credited with saving 10mm. 10mm was produced. It had a short popularity with the gun, the Bren 10, which never really worked well. They had some manufacturing issues. 10mm might have gone into obscurity if this hadn't come around, and it featured in several TV shows like Miami Vice and things like that. So it became a very popular handgun. Then it dropped off, and they discontinued it. And they resurrected it back in 2008 as a 2009 model and have been producing them ever since. There's been a number of running improvements on it, but overall, it's basically a 1911 that shoots 10mm. It's got a few cool features. It's got these wraparound grips, and they're actually contoured, so it's a little bit lower here. And they've got some really nice, aggressive, but not painful pattern on them. You get a hold of this thing, it's staying in your hands, which is kind of important with 10mm. But at no point does it bite into you or give you red marks on the palm or anything else. It's actually really comfortable to hold, like any 1911 is. Now, it's not a small gun. It's a full-size 1911. It's a 5-inch barrel, 8.5 inches long, 5.7 inches tall, and 1.26 inches thick. And of course, with 1911s, the thickest part of it usually is the safety levers. This has only got the safety on the one side and the thickness of whatever grip you've got on it. It's got some nice serrations on a curved back strap and a really nice beaver tail that's extended, and there's no way you're going to get hammer bit by this thing. You'd have to be grabbing it up here to get hammer bit. You get up under that and you're right there. It's not going to get you. Really nice, smooth grip safety, and this doesn't have the hump on it. I really don't like those because they tend to bite into my hand, which at least for me makes it really comfortable to hold, and I don't end up getting beat up right here inside of my thumb. Other than that, it's got all the other standard features that you might expect in a 1911. The hammer is drilled, but it's also got serrations on it, so it's really easy to get a hold of the hammer, but when the hammer is down, it kind of stays out of the way. It's smooth, it won't catch on anything. This one has really nice 3-dot sights. Sights are really easy to see, and the rear sight is dovetailed so that it can be changed, and the front sight is standard 1911, so it's pinned. So you'd have to pop it out, but it is exchangeable just like any other 1911 sight. There are serrations at the back on both sides, no front serrations, and no rail. Now they do sell a tactical version of this with the rail, but I like 1911s to look clean. So we got the one without the rail, and it's just got that nice, smooth, classic 1911 look. We got Glocks and stuff like that when you want to go out and hunt hogs and you want to hang all sorts of accessories off it. You want something that's just really nice to look at, really fun to shoot at the range. This is what you take with you. It comes in at 39 ounces, so it's not a light gun by any stretch of the imagination. So it does a really good job of taming the recoil of the 10mm, and it's all stainless. And it comes with these steel 8-round magazines that have a couple of really cool features, and it actually comes with 2 of them. They have a nice rounded follower, rounded at the front, so it's not going to hang up on anything. And the way it's contoured and everything, we found it really easy to load it. As you're loading this, it just loads smoothly. It doesn't bite your fingers. It doesn't, hang up on you. It just loads smoothly, and it works just flawlessly. So these are really nice, high-quality magazines. They've even got kind of a curved base plate, and they've got 10mm on the base plate. So from end to end, really high quality, especially with that closed-in front piece that does, it's not going to snag or anything. Now, you're paying a little bit for that quality. MSRP on this is $1,200. And unless you happen to catch an FFL in a good mood on a Black Friday sale, you're going to pay $1,200 for it. These things, they're not super common. They're not everywhere. And they do tend to pretty much get their price. That doesn't mean you won't find them on sale somewhere, but it's not like some of the others where you can find them at every gun store and everybody's got a sale going on them. Overall, it's just well constructed and everything is machined flawlessly. The tolerances are tight. It's smooth. When you cycle it, it just cycles smoothly. Everything you'd expect from a high quality 1911, especially at that price. So let's talk about the trigger a little bit. This is effectively an 80 series because it does have a firing pin block drop safety. So combine that with the thumb safety that's standard on any 1911, which by the way works smoothly and operates nicely. It also has a firing pin block that I'll show you when I get it apart. But from a firing standpoint, the trigger is short. That's the whole take up. Pretty much the act of putting my finger on it takes it up. And then that's the break. The entire break. Very short, very crisp. Advertised around 5 pounds, it feels lighter than that. And of course, reset is on any 1911 is pretty much the same. It's extremely short reset. I'm right on the wall. When it clicked, I'm right on the wall, and then break again. So really, really nice trigger. The hardest part about keeping this back on target is the inherent recoil of a 10mm. But that trigger has no issues with keeping you on target. Now, disassembling this is standard 1911 fare, so let's go ahead and get this thing apart and show you the internals. Okay, so start with, of course, any gun you want to check unloaded, but on a 1911 especially, because to take it apart, you're playing around the firing end of it. There's multiple ways to do it. Easiest way to do it I found is turn the safety on, set it up end on its nose, push down, rotate this out of the way, and you've got a very powerful spring. Take the spring off, take the cap off, but you want to keep a hold of that spring. Now this does have a dual recoil spring, and one thing I did find is that does create a minor hassle, and the dual recoil spring likes to get in the way. So you kind of end up having to play with the spring and wiggle it around a little bit. You can't generally get the dual recoil spring to come off. It attaches to the guide rod fairly firmly, but just play with it a little bit, get it rotated around, take the barrel bushing out, and then all you got to do at this point is turn the safety off, slide it back to the detent, and on this one the pin pops out very nicely. Just push it with your finger and it comes out, and then you're ready to take it apart. Sometimes you have to turn it upside down, the barrel lug, as things move, will hang it up. One thing you'll find with this is it does have a rather short guide rod, which has created no functional issues whatsoever, but it does make it easy to take it apart. You don't need tools or anything else, and you can see that dual spring, and that's helping control the recoil impulse of the 10mm. A little bit of it comes in and then gains strength as it compresses. I had talked a little bit about the machining of this. Everything is machined meticulously. The barrel's got almost a mirror finish on it. You can see some scuffs already from having fired it, but that's just normal operating wear. But everything is just highly polished. This is what the whole barrel looked like before we fired it at all. We've got at least a couple hundred rounds through this thing. You just can't resist shooting it. Your standard 1911 feed ramp, which is minimal. These are rated to handle the most powerful, regular 10mm that's out there, as long as you're staying into standard 10mm. But anything that Underwood's got, Buffalo Bore, it can handle it all. Inside of the slide, everything else is again machined nicely. There's the drop safety pin, or the piston for the drop safety. There you got the little lugs for locking up. Everything else is just as you would expect from a gun like this, just well done and smooth. Now putting it back together is almost as easy as taking it apart. But I don't think you want me to put it together yet. You want to see the frame. So let's talk about the frame. And as I mentioned earlier, everything on here is stainless as far as the materials on the metals. The frame, again, machined very, very well. Nice, robust guide rails. There's your hammer at the back. It's relatively simple in here. There's not a whole lot going on. There's the piston for the drop safety, or the arm for the drop safety. There's really not a lot going on in here, which is typical of a 1911. And you got a nicely polished frame part of the feed ramp, which mates up with the barrel side of the feed ramp. So just well done, you know, end to end. Now let's go ahead and put the thing back together. So to do that, slide the barrel back in, slide the guide rod back in, and spring assembly, it kind of goes in as a unit. Make sure you got that horseshoe pointing down. Take the frame, slide the frame back onto it, and then what I'm going to try to do, and it may be difficult to see it on camera, but I want to catch the barrel lug in there. Sometimes it takes a little wiggling around, and you have to look in there. Okay, it wasn't in position when I started to do that, so let me fix that. It's not unusual to sometimes have to play around with them to get that lug to fall down to get it where you want it to go. It's not difficult, and sometimes it just goes in right where you want, other times it doesn't. Line up the little half moon, snap it in place. Bring it forward, put the safety on. And again, the safety in this case isn't acting as a safety from a safety perspective. All it's doing is locking the slide in place so that when I'm trying to put the top part back together, I'm not fighting with the slide, just keep dropping down. Play with this a little bit to get past that dual recoil spring. There we go. And on a 1911, you'll notice that there's a ridge on it right there. I can push it down, lock it in place, and then push it down again. If I'm having issues with the strength of trying to push down on this, I can push it down with a whole thumb. I may not be able to put it in place, but I can get it all the way down. Rotate this to catch it, and then use, you know, just the front or something like that. So that's one of the things you can do with a 1911 if you're having difficulty pushing it down all the way on your own. Take the safety off, we're back in business. So if you're looking at, you know, thinking about getting a 1911 and you're kind of intimidated by how would I clean that thing, I've cleaned 100 blocks, but the 1911, it's got all those parts. It's actually quite simple. The process for taking apart and putting together a 1911 is not bad at all. And this is a perfect example of a 1911. Now I know 1911's come in 45, but you haven't lived until you'd fired a 10mm 1911. So it's a little bit bigger than the PPS M2 was, but a whole lot more fun at the range. And Hammer's still got his PPS Classic if he, you know, has a Jones in to play with a PPS. In the meantime, we're going to have some more fun with this thing. If you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe. Don't forget to click that little bell if you do. Check us out on Facebook and Patreon, and have a great day. Thank you.